Welcome in to Rover Sports tonight, and we are live now on Rover Sports, but we have been trying to get Patrick on for quite some time. It is Patrick Berthalette. I bet you get the nickname Big Bertha a lot, do you?
No, that's a first one. In high school, I was a freshman. You get a little bit of picked on when you're a freshman. So the worst nickname I ever got was Afterbirth. So I don't think you could you could do much worse than that one. So
After
no, and you got the name right. So that's always a win. It's
Berthalette,
rare.
Big Bertha, but if you play any golf, you have Bertha. I'm trying to think of other things that you here. Now we're perfect. I'm trying to think of other nicknames that you can have, but maybe Bertha's the best one.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. I'll have to let my friends know that that's it for me now. Just Bertha.
Just the Big Bertha Show. We got Patrick Berthalette on here. We're on my YouTube channel, and Pat, we are trying to create what could be a new podcasting network. So it's great to just have you on my channel. This has been my channel for like the past 5 or 6 years. So it's awesome to get you on the show. And you're a guy, you live outside of Massachusetts, but yet you are a huge Michigan fan.
Yeah, it's weird. You grow up in Massachusetts. You got BC, but who
Right.
wants to be a BC fan? They stink. So it's kind of like the pick of the litter. You just pick a random team. I know there's a lot of Notre Dame fans, but not me. No. So yeah, they were on TV a lot. Just became a huge Michigan fan and been following them ever since.
Let's talk about the hate. Let's talk about our hatred of Notre Dame football. Okay.
Oh
So
boy.
I'm one of these guys that there's some people out there that absolutely can't stand the Irish. And I think that they can't stand the Irish because they're not playing in they don't play in a regular conference. They're kind of have been perpetually overrated. And maybe they're just on television all the time. They're nostalgic about the brand. I know I listed a lot of things. I don't want to steal your thunder, but just go about your relationship kind of analyzing Notre Dame football.
So, you hit it right in the head with the on TV all the time. They're on What do they have, like NBC rights every single week? And you're watching these games. It's like Notre Dame versus Navy, and Notre Dame's up 35, and you're like, who cares about this game? Why does this team feel so special that they get their own channel? To
Yeah.
me, it all started because one of the first games I watched was Michigan Notre Dame when I was a little kid. So that was like one of the first memories. That's one of the reasons why I just don't like them.
Yeah.
It's overrated all the time. They don't have like a true schedule. Just join the ACC already, get it over with, and compete with Clemson every year. They have a legit shot.
And they have Mike Tirico on the call like you're talking about every single week. And yeah, their games are just totally boring. Barely watch them. And the rivalries, it's kind of like whoever's convenient for them to play on their schedule. And they might be undefeated. They might not. It all is predicated on USC, on Stanford. And
yeah, USC's a big one too.
It's just a very strange school. You can't really connect them maybe to the NFL. Maybe you can. South Bend is just South Bend. I will admit seems like a very cool place to have a football stadium, but the whole school is just it's not a public school. So I think that's why people might not gravitate towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the hate kind of started for Notre Dame when they played Alabama in the national championship game, and you got these delusional Notre Dame fans that are like, "We got this. It's gonna be easy," and then Alabama just rolls over them like they do most teams they play, and it's just like, "Yeah, nice try," but
Oh my
but
God, that Clemson game a couple of years ago, everybody predicted the fall of Notre Dame, and they just got hammered.
yeah, absolutely. It's Notre Dame's just one of those schools that I feel like their fans are really passionate, which you're fine with. There's schools that they have really diehard fans, and to me, they just overhype them every single year. And you could say that about just about any school that isn't Alabama, Ohio State, even Georgia now with what they're building. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think they're at that level where they can say like, hey, we're this really elite school. They're just meh. They're just there.
And Notre Dame, like Brian Kelly is like not a likable coach like one bit. He just kind of always has a stern look on his face. So they're a very traditional team, but yet they're not even likable in a traditional sense. They're not really. I think Wisconsin fans are pretty humble. I think Minnesota fans are certainly humble in the Big Ten. And Notre Dame, they're just their offense isn't that much fun. They're not like an up and comer like maybe a UCF. And they don't have that pop to them. And not playing in a conference, not competing against the best, you're just not generating the respect. Like when Notre Dame went to Georgia and played, I think that more people like just seeing them compete and play the big dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And believe it or not, they played a really good game in that one too. I thought they had a chance to pull it off, and that could have been their big game where they could have said, "Hey, we might play an independent conference, or what is that what they call it, independent conference?"
Yeah, it is.
Whatever, just independent. We might not play in a real conference, but we are a legit school. They get good recruits. Like, there's no reason why they can't be in a conference, but they're just AD or whatever, just too lazy to make that change, I guess.
So we got some good guests on here. This is a live show. This is the debut, Patrick Berthalette. This is fun. We got Harrison Jolly, who's been a big fan of the channel. He donates $2. He's a great guy. We were talking about DeAndre Baker this past weekend because he's a Giants
boy.
like myself. So DeAndre Baker, he felt the need to try to get $40,000, even though he's making $6 million.
Hey, you never can hate on extra money.
Yeah.
You never know when you might need it.
He pulled up, his cover. He didn't have the best cover. He was in a Rolls Royce, but you could look at leadership, you could look at intensity, and there's certain things to take from that. The edge of DeAndre Baker. And then Jet Central's another guy on YouTube. I'll introduce you to him. He covers all of the Jets content.
Well, lucky him.
So going back to the discussion about Michigan football, I think that, so for Michigan, you grew up with Brady Hoke, with Rich Rod. Who was kind of like the first few players of Michigan when you were a young kid that you really resonated to when you looked at Michigan football?
Probably Braylon Edwards was a big one. Chad Henne, Mike Hart, those guys way back. They were with Lloyd Carr, so I got to enjoy a couple years at least with Lloyd before Rich Rod ruined just about everything. But those are the three biggest names that can come to mind right off the top of the head.
Right. So I think that I do remember the quarterbacks of Chad Henne. You had that Tate Forcier guy.
Oh, dang.
Denard Robinson. Denard was a lot of fun to watch.
He was, yeah. That was exciting at least.
Yeah. And then back then, Ohio State was going through Jim Tressel. So I think it was more evenly split, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you remember all of those games, but I guess Ohio State wasn't really untouchable at that time after Tressel.
So when Tressel left, my understanding is Michigan won the last game the year after Tressel left.
And then it was Fickle.
And then it was like a break year. I think it was like, wasn't it like Luke Fickle?
Yeah.
Or something. Luke Fickle was there for a year, and then Urban Meyer ruined everything. But no, it looked like it was going to go in the direction of Michigan, and unfortunately, Ohio State made a better hire. They made an excellent hire who's going to recruit at the top level every single year, and it looks like they've built a program to stay and compete at the highest level every single year, year in, year out. So, because last year was supposed to be the down year after Tressel left and Fickle came in. Day was supposed to be the next Fickle. That's what people were talking about, and then they go off and they look like one of the best Ohio State teams I've ever seen. So you just can't win at all.
Even though Ohio State lost to Clemson, I think that team last year, you can even argue that they might even be able to compete with the team that won the national championship. with Ohio State. And really, Clemson's just the nemesis to Ohio State. And you had Chase Young, Justin Fields came in, and Day, you're right, he had a flawless season. Now, he's never going to get the credit that he kind of deserves. So the one thing is, Patrick, is that when you look at these coaches like that replace like Bear Bryant, or in this case, we're talking about Urban Meyer, I think that they're going to get a residual effect where the residual effect is like the recruiting is still fantastic. Your roster's still stacked. So I'm wondering if that drop-off is going to happen, or is Ryan Day just going to be a stud for Ohio State?
Well, right now they got, I think it's the #1 recruiting class in 2021. So it's not really taking too much of a dip at the moment. But the biggest thing for me is like when these great coaches leave, is cashing in on, like you said, that talent. If you struggle with the excellent talent your first or second year coming in, then you might see the recruiting drop-offs. But if you're able to say, well, do what Ryan Day did last year and have a really, really great season, I think, to me, you can keep recruiting at a high level because you're like, all right, well, even though I'm a different coach, I can still win a lot of games too.
The development of Fields is very impressive too, because even though Fields was a terrific player in Georgia in high school, for Fields to develop that much is really something that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah, and he spent a lot of time at Georgia underneath I lost his Jake Fromm. He was underneath Fromm, who has great leadership skills. He's not like a sexy quarterback that's going to do a lot like Lamar Jackson, but he's like that typical average steady quarterback, like kind of like an AJ McCarron was at Alabama.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, you can say, okay, he learned from that, and then he goes to Ohio State where they're going to open him up even more. Like that's scary. Like he definitely, if he stayed at Georgia, I think he wouldn't be as good as he was with Ohio State, just because they open it up for him. He can use his legs. And even though, like, at times he struggled in that Clemson game, he was playing. People forget he was playing on a sprained knee that he hurt in the Michigan game. So it's just something that they should have probably won that game, but
yeah,
that's a
different
story.
They made some big mistakes. Just Clemson's been there, and just Clemson has their number. Late in the second half, I think like they might have got a scoop and score turned back, but still they had an opportunity. It was a really good final drive by Justin Fields, who had the miscommunication there. That was just a fantastic game. And for Ohio State, you had Chase Young, and you look at the Big Ten, and they were just completely untested. But to go back to kind of Georgia, I think you're right about UGA, and that's why Chaney's gone. Now they're bringing in a new coordinator. They have Jamie Newman now as their quarterback, and maybe Georgia can let loose, because it's pretty amazing, Patrick, that LSU went from LSU and leapfrogged the University of Georgia, and that was really just the SEC championship game for LSU's offense to just be like that. It was very eye-opening, maybe, for Kirby Smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is you just got to get lucky with some of these quarterbacks. Like Joe Burrow, his first year at LSU, it wasn't really that good. Like, he was just an average quarterback. He played well in some games, but you got to get lucky. Some of these quarterbacks, they got those egos these days where they don't need to work as hard. There was rumors about some quarterbacks that didn't work as hard in the offseason. They struggled. And then you look at a guy like Joe Burrow, who worked his butt off all year long, and that really paid off. And also, what the Joe Brady system was really helpful for him.
Yeah, that's why I look at the evaluation of Burrow as a complicated evaluation. So when you look at Burrow and LSU, I have two questions, and then I'm going to answer these own questions. Do you think that Joe Burrow is a product of Joe Brady, or is Joe Burrow going to be super legit when he gets to Cincinnati? And then after that, is LSU, are they going to stay elite, or is this just Joe Brady?
So the first question I'll go, I think Burrow is really talented. You can't really – it's tough to tell because the situation in Cincinnati, I think, isn't as good as maybe if he went somewhere else that was really good, or – Lamar went to a perfect situation in Baltimore where they had a lot of talent already there. and he just developed around him. Cincinnati has a meh offensive line, not very talented offensive line. So that could be something that could you look at and say, okay, he might get sacked a lot, kind of similar to like a little bit what Daniel Jones did his rookie year. He played well in some games, but then he was getting sacked a lot, and you just don't want to see that. I don't think he'll go to like David Carr level where he gets sacked like 60 something times in a season. But you just do, but offensive line is very important, and I think you saw what it did to Andrew Luck. It broke him down. And when the Colts were finally able to bring an offensive line in, he was like, I'm done, dude. This hurts way too much.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing with LSU, I think they could have success for the future, but it really depends on this year. And I think we'll see. Like, as we talked about with the coaches, when the coaches get replaced, can they have success after? And can LSU have success after Brady and after Burrow leaves? We'll see. And that could be something that could be very telling about the future of LSU football. If it was just a one-hit wonder, or they're here to stay.
I think that they're not here to stay because Dave Aranda is just a great defensive coordinator. He now goes to Baylor to replace Matt Rule. I think Aranda is kind of a wizard, and even what he did with that defense was terrific. And then you look at Scott Linehan. I mean, he was the Cowboys offensive coordinator, so it's not like you're infusing like this greatness. I've seen Miles Brennan play the quarterback position, and I don't think he's the next Joe Burrow. And then you look at the SEC, you're going to have Alabama. And then Texas A&M, Jimbo's he's really disappointed thus far. And I even think Kellen Mond, I'm not even sure he's going to start the whole year now. Maybe you're a Kellen Mond guy, but the thing is about Texas A&M, Texas A&M in the West, you have Auburn too. Chad Morris comes in to help out Auburn. Bo Nix, second year. Defense was absolutely great last year for Auburn. So I don't see LSU getting back to this moment again. I think it was the perfect mix with Joe Burrow. And in the comments, I got to address this before some of these guys log off. They're giving me a lot of crap for wearing this Carolina Panthers shirt, and you were even giving me some crap as well.
Good.
I'm known as a Giants fan on YouTube, so I guess since I'm a Giants fan, I can't wear any other material. I can't wear any team's gear, even though this is in a Charlotte airport. The Panthers, I think they have one of the best logos in the NFL. So I know you hate the Carolina Panthers, but you have to admit the Panthers colors and logo, it's like some of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good logo. It's really good colors, but that's about as nice of things that I'll say about the Carolina Panthers. That's it. Chris McCaffrey was on my fantasy team last year, so I'll give him that. They were good. Right. They were good to me in that regard.
Right. So to talk about Burrow, to go back to Burrow, Joe Burrow is one of these guys. He's so hard to evaluate because, like you said, the year before, Burrow was a 6th-round pick if he were to come out to the NFL. Yep. He was very up and down. He was like a game manager in college. So I wonder about the arm. The arm talent is not going to be elite, but Gardner Minshew, there's some guys in the NFL that still survive without that arm talent. So I'm just so curious to see it really play out. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I definitely don't think he's going to be like this Tom Brady-like player or Aaron Rodgers. What do you think? Do you think that he could be that good for the Cincinnati Bengals?
I don't think anyone is going to compare anyone to Aaron Rodgers just because I think he's the best quarterback in terms of skill set in the NFL. Obviously, Brady's the best in terms of winning and working harder than everyone. But to me, I think Burrow could be – I hate saying it because it just sounds ridiculous, but he could be like a Brady. That Brady doesn't have a super cannon, or he didn't most of his career, and Burrow's really accurate. And I think that he could come out, and if they make it simple on him in Cincinnati, Zach Taylor worked really well with Jared Goff with the Rams when he was there. So I think it's something that, if he's able to get to Burrow's really coachable. Burrow works really, really hard. And they also got a guy, another winner from Clemson, the wide receiver, T. Higgins. Mm-hmm. So to me, you brought in more of a winning culture into Cincinnati. I think they got to shore up that offensive line a little bit, but he could be a really, really talented quarterback if they just simplify it for him. I hate when teams make rookie quarterbacks' life so miserable because they try to do the same thing they just did with a veteran quarterback. It doesn't work. It doesn't work well. And to me, I think that he could have a really similar career to
But I
Alex
don't
Smith.
think he's gonna win.
I wanted to say Tom Brady, but I don't think they're going to win 6 Super Bowls. So I
Exactly.
went with Alex
If
Smith.
Burrow wins 2 Super Bowls, then that's going to be ridiculously successful. Maybe he could be like a Jimmy Garoppolo style. I'm trying to think of quarterbacks that win multiple Super Bowls. He just has to be
Eli Manning too is another one.
maybe.
You know Eli Manning, great.
Yeah, I know Eli Manning. I think that they're very different because I think Eli Manning is going to be a guy that's going to put the ball in harm's way. He's going to make the hero throw more often. And even Eli Manning was inconsistent, but I think there's a big difference between, Eli and Tom. And Burrow's prototype in the NFL. I don't know if it's going to be Alex Smith, but it's weird because when you look at the talent of Burrow, it's not like a Matthew Stafford. Maybe it's like a mobile Matt Ryan that could kind of like make throws. Yeah, I love Burrow's leadership, his competitive edge, and the thing that he's going to have to learn, like in the NFL, I just want to see Burrow kind of keep that. And I think it is important for him to get off to a good start, kind of keep the magic of LSU. Imagine if they make a wild card, which is possible. So I think
absolutely
to a great starter. Since he sinks him, he could be just like Andy Dalton. He could go into Matt Leinart territory. So
that's a dangerous territory you're bringing him in.
dangerous territory. But I'm just, I don't know about Joe Burrow. I mean, he has to then win at this tremendous level. And T. Higgins is a weapon. Zach Taylor, I don't mind either. So that's going to be something definitely to watch for. Tua Tagovailoa, I mean, do you think Tua can be do you think Tua is really legit going to the NFL?
Before he hurt his hip, I had him as the number 1 quarterback. I would have picked him over Burrow 10 times out of 10. I love Tua. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. He can make every single throw. I know the lefty thing throws people off because you're not used to seeing lefty quarterbacks, but that doesn't bug me at all. All you have to do is get a good right tackle because that's basically your left tackle with Tua. But to me, I think that he's in a good situation in Miami. They got a really young roster. He's not going in with a bunch of veteran players. He's got Fitzpatrick that can help him with the X's and O's part of football, as they say. But I just think Tua has all the skill sets. If he's just able to stay on the field, that's the biggest question mark. If he can stay on the field, I think he'll have a great career. If not,
I agree with
go down as a humongous bust.
I love this draft class. And Tua, to me, like greatest college quarterback I've ever watched because just the quick release. He's better than Andrew Luck. He's better than anything I've seen. The quick release, the athleticism to kind of move in the pocket, and then the accuracy and the touch on the deep ball. So I think he's immensely more talented than Joe Burrow even. The thing about the Dolphins, they got Buffalo. You still have the Patriots and Bill Belichick. I think it's going to take a while for them to get that thing rolling in Miami. I actually think even Joe Burrow has a better situation than Tua because Joe Burrow has Mixon. He has A.J. Green, T. Higgins. So I'd be shocked if Miami made the postseason, but it would be so much fun to see a year of Tua, and then Tua can kind of get that leap like Kyler Murray. Everybody's hyping up Kyler Murray right
now. I'm not a huge Kyler Murray guy, but to me, too, I think Miami has a chance in the AFC East. I think New England's going to take a huge step down.
Huge. I think huge is in what?
5-11.
Oh my God,
that's pretty huge.
I really disagree with you on that. Genuinely, I think they're making the playoffs still, like 10 and 6.
That's interesting. I mean,
hard competing with Buffalo to like the last week of the season because if Bill Belichick, that would be a complete disaster. They might even be able to get a Trevor Lawrence, and then Stidham is a total failure. So you think this offense is going to suck next year?
Well, they sucked with Brady last year, so I think they're going to suck with Jarrett Stidham this year. I'm not super high on Stidham. Stidham, I know, was a huge recruit out of Texas in high school. He went to Baylor first, then all the stuff with Baylor happened, and then he goes to Auburn, and he was okay at Auburn. He wasn't anything like he hit one week, he'd miss the next. I don't think he's a guy in the NFL that you can count on week in and week out to be that elite quarterback, and I think Bill knows that. That's why they went with a lot of defensive pieces in this year's draft. They didn't try to surround him with any superstar wide receivers or anything. So to me, I think that people are going to realize quickly in New England that we miss Tom Brady badly, and Stidham is not the guy.
So here's the thing, though, is that you would think that I don't think the Patriots and Bill Belichick is one of the oldest coaches. I don't know if he's the one that tanked for a young quarterback next year. So then they didn't take interest in Andy Dalton. They didn't take interest in Cam Newton.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, if they felt like their team was a quarterback away from winning, I think they would have made a move to go after Newton or another guy. I just don't think the roster is really that strong, especially in the offense. And here's me, you're looking at me, here's me doubting the Patriots again, year in and year out. I do it, and you'll be right. They'll win 10 games somehow. They'll figure out. Bill Belichick will pull his voodoo out on the field, and they'll manage to win 10 games. But still, to me, right now, if I look at that roster, I say, aging defense, they got some new young pieces. Offense isn't really good at all. So to me, I think they're going to have to run a similar system with Tennessee a little bit, where they run the ball first, and they try to open up the air a little bit there. But I don't fear any of those receivers. And Edelman is on his last leg of his career. He could drop dead on the field at any moment, it seems. And he also, coming back from that ACL, I don't know what he'll be like without Brady. So it'll be a very interesting season.
I don't think there's any alpha dogs in the AFC, in the AFC East particularly. So I don't think that the Patriots are going to lose at home to too many foes. I think that Miami and the Jets, they can actually maybe sweep those teams or go 3-1 with a loss to Miami. I'm not a fan of Adam Gase or Darnold whatsoever.
No,
so then you look at the Bills, and the Bills, that's the team that a lot of people are penciling in, and I could see Buffalo going 12-4. I could see Josh Allen having the year. I can also see maybe the Patriots getting them, and Sean McDermott disappointing, because Sean McDermott, I mean, he did have a really nice run there for a while last year, but Sean has still never won a playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, they should have won that game against the Texans. I remember watching that game, and I was talking the whole time, like, who is trying to win this game? Like, this is a playoff game.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like each side was trying to lose. But to me, I think Buffalo should be penciled in as the number one team in the AFC East. They got a really talented defense. I think their offense is going to grow even more with Diggs, where you can almost have Allen just huck the ball up in the air 60 yards. You know he can do it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, does Allen take that growth with the accuracy? He's had games where he just can't throw to anybody. He's throwing it into the dirt. He's overthrowing guys. And if you look at that and say, well, New England, you were saying with New England doing well, New England could sneak a win or two against Buffalo, just because if you get Allen on an off week and that defense plays well again, or New England's defense plays well again, you're going to have maybe a potential chance to win a couple games just based off of low score games.
I think Allen is fine, but Buffalo was just immature, and they showed it when they went to New England last year. I mean, Allen had those third quarter throws, like they competed admirably, but they weren't ready to take that next step. And even against the Texans, they were settling for field goals. They needed the knockout punch early in the game. They never could hit that knockout punch. They kept it within fighting distance, and Deshaun Watson just made plays. And then even late, the Texans and the Houston Texans, like, they're just not a fun team to watch, Patrick, even when they were beating the Chiefs, I was initially very stunned, but the Texans, they always have an expiration date. And even before the Hopkins trade, they do have that they're hard to really take seriously, because they've never been a congruent team where it's all been together. They've either had Matt Schaub and the defense was correct, they were peaking perfectly, or now you finally have a Deshaun Watson and your defense of Romeo Crennels is all over the dang place.
Yeah, the Texans to me are just a dysfunctional franchise. They can't figure something out. I think Bill O'Brien's gotten a little bit in over his head, especially this offseason. I know a lot of people absolutely despise the Hopkins trade. I was one of those people that said, that seems very odd. But to me, that Hopkins trade, at the end of the day, when you got the Texans calling another team saying, hey, we want to trade DeAndre Hopkins, and the first question they're probably asking is, why? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to do this? So I think that's where the value dropped on Hopkins, because, if you're a team, you're going, hey, he doesn't want to play for you. Well, Why are we going to trade a first round pick for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the Texans did okay with what they got with the circumstances, but to me, you got to get a first round pick if you're going to trade your franchise wide receiver and
you gotta
replace
call them more teams. Who cares if you even trade them into the Tennessee Titans right in division? I always don't get that whole approach of don't trade in the division. I don't think that they did enough calling. He's a GM, and Stephon Diggs got a nice return. Well, the thing is about Hopkins, like why his value was lower than Diggs is that contract, and he didn't even want to sign the contract in Houston. And now Arizona is going to be paying Hop, I think, $22 million. If Cooper's making 20, he's probably going to be making $22 million, and that is very expensive.
Yeah, I mean, for a wide receiver, a position that you see all across the league, there's almost one wide receiver in each team that's really a star. So you're almost looking at it as if, hey, we'll let him go and, we'll just grab somebody else. That's a lot cheaper option. And especially if you want to pay Watson, especially if you want to boost that offensive line that's been horrible the past couple of years. I know they got
until the weed smoker came in.
Yeah.
Until the gas mask came in, and then he's been a stud, man.
Oh, man. That was the greatest draft day event I think I've ever seen, because I follow the draft every single year, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, where that just gets randomly posted in the middle of a draft, and then the GM see that and he just slides
and they just panic. I think that Manziel, like with the beer, is also funny.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Aaron Rodgers, the slides are great, and we missed that with the green room. We missed the epic slides, like of Jacob Eason or somebody going there. Would have been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you got to see what was it, CeeDee Lamb snatching the phone from his girlfriend's hand. I think that was definitely
that might have won it. Oh, there were some good ones. How about Mike Vrabel's house?
Oh man, that their family is just so ridiculous. The Vrabels are a fun group, and I know Vrabel comes off as a little bit of a dick, but
yeah.
I think he really nailed it. That
I don't actually think he's a dick. I just think he's the player's coach. And you look at even like Taylor Lewan in that podcast, and I don't know. I just think Vrabel is totally likable, actually.
Oh yeah, no, I think he comes off as a dick, but he's a nice guy. He's a goofy dude.
He does it all for show. Speaking of, we're gonna pivot here. We're here with Patrick Berthalette, Rover Sports here. Started the podcast. Speaking of some that think he might be a dick, it's Jim Harbaugh in the South coming down, setting up the satellite camps. So Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, being a Michigan fan, I mean, I'm sure you must have motivation about Jim Harbaugh. It's time now to go like 20 minutes deep on everything Jim Harbaugh, lay it all out on the table. What is your opinion about Coach Harbaugh and when he came from the NFL and now what he's doing? What do you think about Harbaugh right now?
I'm sure Paul Feinbaum is licking his chops at the chance of a 20-minute segment on Jim Harbaugh. But to me, I love Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a great coach. I think he's done a really good job on a program that was failing. It was entering Miami Hurricanes dismal territory, and I think that he brought him back a little bit. And they're not going to be that super team like Alabama, known for winning national titles, but to me, I think they're on the rise. They're still building something there, and there's still a lot of potential. But I do think he's got to do something soon. He's got to get at least close again to a Big Ten title game, because if he doesn't get there, he's going to end up getting kicked out before he even gets a chance.
Yeah, and the game that gets away is that game, that overtime game at noon again, when you were at Ohio State, 3rd and 1, you had the opportunity to win with Wilton Speight there. And if that game goes differently, we're talking about possibly just looking at Harbaugh completely differently.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a big, if they won that game, they're a Big Ten title game away from the playoffs. So you think about that one single game altered his entire legacy at the University of Michigan. And it really stinks, because that game, I hate talking about that game. It's one of those things. That was the JT spot. And it's crazy to think that the NCAA allowed 4 referees from Ohio to ref that game. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Who thought of that? as a
Yeah,
good idea.
I get that. I mean, it shouldn't come down to one play, but it did. The real thing about Michigan, though, is you had Josh Gaddis. The Wisconsin game was embarrassing, but against Penn State, I really thought Shea Patterson he really came into his own. And it's kind of tough, Patrick, for Michigan because Shea Patterson, if you look at the Shea Patterson 2 years, you look at Michigan, when they had Winovich and Rashawn Gary the year before, team was lights out. And then I think, they went to Ohio State, and that was the 63 game. The Notre Dame game at the beginning of the year, you could choke it up to being like a really inexperienced team. I still thought Michigan was a really good team. And in the bowl game, they just kind of tanked. I mean, so did you think like 2018 was the best team that Harbaugh's ever had?
2018. I still think 2016 was the best year. I still think that they were better than that 2018 team. I think they would have easily won if the two teams played. I think 2016 team would beat them pretty badly. And the 2018 team, the thing with me is they didn't even compete with Ohio State. Ohio State just smashed them, and it's something. You look at that game, and there's fans out there, other Michigan fans that are like, just beat Ohio State. Like, who cares about the rest of the season? And it almost seems like Michigan either doesn't take that game as seriously as Ohio State, or they just come in going, crap, we got this humongous monkey on our back that we just can't get off, and they play really nervous.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. They got to break it. They have to break it sometime soon. And
it's just hard for Michigan to kind of get like this huge program win, because the Florida game, that was a great opening showing in the second half. And then Florida ended up tanking with Jim McElwain. The bowl games, nobody's really watching the bowl games, and it doesn't help that they lose those games really close. I mean, maybe you're watching it, like against Florida State. And it just seems like it's this Ohio State thing or nothing. Do you think the conference is just down? Like, you look at Penn State, you look at Michigan State. Do you think that the conference is just down to the point where Michigan's just not getting these types of big-time reps that it needs with Jim Harbaugh?
I actually think the conference is going up. I especially in the other division on the other side of the West. You see Minnesota's got a really talented team. Wisconsin year in, year out is really hard, and it seems like Michigan plays them every single year for some reason. And then you look at, I know Michigan State, they got a new coach, Mel Tucker. We'll see how that goes. But Michigan State isn't a tough win ever, because Michigan State's Super Bowl is Michigan. So they play Michigan tough every single year. I think that just the conference as a whole, it's tough to get to that level of Ohio State. Ohio State is a top 3 program in the country, and to get up to that level, you either got to get lucky in one game, or you just got to hope that they just drop. It's almost like Alabama, where you see these random teams beat Alabama, but we all know that Alabama is better than everyone. It's just these teams get lucky sometimes, other than Clemson. But you just need to get lucky once or twice, and it boosts that confidence to beat them in the future.
So the thing is about Michigan from the outside, I think Michigan, like the secondary, they need to go down to Florida and get like more speed just in the secondary unit to kind of compete with Ryan Day, this aerial attack. You look at the quarterbacks that go to Ohio State, and Jim Harbaugh, he likes that kind of pro-style quarterback, but I'd like to see Michigan get like a complete stud at quarterback. Like a Cam Newton can turn around the franchise, or a Cam Newton could turn around Michigan. Shea Patterson did have more pop than I think Rudock and Wilton Spate had. And Michigan fans with Patterson are so wishy-washy. I thought the end of the Penn State game was maybe his best game, of Shea Patterson's career. But I think that they're just missing that deep ball thrower, like a big 6'4" guy that absolutely can sling it and where they can score quickly. And I think that's what you need on offense. Yeah,
absolutely. They need a big-time signal caller. That's been the position that fans have been claiming for years. People like the quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven sport now. And you look at it and you say, well, Rudock was okay, but he's not going to do anything spectacular. You had Spate, who was good but not great, and then you had Patterson, who was either really, really good or really, really bad. And I think that people struggle with the inconsistencies of Patterson, which is the reason why a lot of people have negative thoughts about him. But they got two guys coming in this year. McCaffrey, who's played a little bit, he's a little bit more of a runner. And then you got this absolute stud in Joe Milton, who I think should win the starting job. He's that guy, like you said, they need a guy that can score quickly. He can sling the ball with just about the best of anybody. And I do think he should get the starting role. And it's tough when you have two really, really talented, or really, I'll say, put in quotes, you haven't seen him play much, but supposed to be talented quarterbacks there.
Yeah, McCaffrey is from the McCaffrey family. He's not the kid that transferred from Nebraska, correct?
No. That's the
youngest
wide receiver brother, I think. Yeah.
Okay. When I look at Dylan McCaffrey, I've seen Dylan McCaffrey play. I just don't think that McCaffrey, in terms of him throwing the ball, is all that talented. I think he's mostly a running quarterback, just not going to push it down the field. So you do have Milton, a guy that is getting overlooked, and you might know the guy is a guy from Reno, Nevada. I think his name's like Cade McNamara.
Oh, he's good too.
I
just think he's a year or two away.
He had good high school tape. He gets the ball out on time. He's very accurate. He has swag about him. And then there's a guy kind of where you live from upstate New York who's rated as a 3-star kid. That kid is a really good kid for a 3-star. The kid that's coming in this year.
Yeah. I can't think of his name, but he's a really good dual threat guy. I'm kind of upset that I can't think of his name.
It's like Joe Vill something.
Yeah, V something. I know who you're talking about, but it's cool to see like some of these 3-star guys. Like, he wasn't getting recognition from really anywhere, and then all of a sudden Michigan randomly sees him, offers him. He comes in. I don't know if he'll get playing time. He might come in. I think they'll give him a year to get experience and stuff working at practice, and then he could be a guy. You could throw McNamara in there next year and throw him in a little bit of Wildcat. You just never know. A little bit of Lamar Jackson.
So Milton, though, I guess Milton should be the guy that, as was he a junior now, Milton?
Either that or redshirt sophomore. It's okay. It always confuses me with the redshirt. It throws me off because I count the years, but I always forget about the redshirt sometimes.
So you have Josh Gaddis now, and the offense, it never really got super quick with Josh Gaddis at the helm, but what kind of pop is Michigan going to have from the wide receivers and running backs next year?
Their running back group is stacked. They got Zach Charbonnet, who's from California. He broke the freshman record for touchdowns last year at Michigan. I think Haskins is another power guy. And then they got a guy from St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Blake Corum, who's a really, really good speed demon. And I almost forgot about Chris Evans, who got suspended due to academic reasons last year, who's supposed to be this versatile pass-catching running back that would fit greatly in the Gaddis scheme. He's back this year. So, I mean, their running backs are great. Their wide receivers are going to miss a couple guys, but I think they got a lot of speed. They got Giles Jackson. He returned a kick for a touchdown in one of their games. So he's showing great speed. You got Mike Sanderstill, who's actually from Massachusetts. So shout out to Mass. I always love it. And they also got throwing names.
Tight end players at Michigan.
They got Nico Collins back too at wide receiver. It's a big body.
Yeah.
But their tight ends are young. They lost Sean Kewen. I think that's a tough one. I think they got a lot of speed tight ends. I don't know if they have as many blocking ones, so that might hurt them a little bit in the running game. But you see these guys, they come in as sticks in tight ends, and then they get bulked up. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do with the Corona stuff. It's tough to really build up. So you could see a lot of offenses struggle in the beginning, and especially with a new quarterback, Michigan could really struggle at the beginning of the year.
At least Michigan, kind of has a system together with Harbaugh and kind of has that pro-style offense that can be kind of versatile. I remember Zach Gentry was a quarterback. I thought Gentry would have been the quarterback from New Mexico, but they didn't decide to stick with him at quarterback.
Yeah, that was always interesting. He ended up being I think it was a 6th-round pick as a tight end from the Steelers. But it was people were really upset that he moved from quarterback to tight end because they thought he'd be a really good quarterback. But he's stuck with it, and now he's playing in the NFL. So I don't know if he can really complain too much or people can really say too much, but it just shows the ability of Harbaugh to coach. I think that's another thing of Harbaugh to do. He brings players to the NFL, and that's the goal of being a college coach to me.
Yes, it is. And that just shows you recruiting as well. But it's going to come down maybe to the skill positions for Michigan to improve. I'm looking now at the schedule, and I'm sure they've looked at the schedule. So Washington is going to be a game that's a high-profile game, but I believe that you get Washington. You can't get Washington at a better point, I think, than at what everything going on with Washington. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Washington's in a kind of a similar situation where they're going with a new quarterback,
new coach
too. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for Washington to have a good basis on offense and defense. I just think that Michigan can pull the one off and start the season off 1-0. But I'm not gonna say anything yet because I'll get all excited, then they'll lose by 40.
Oh my God! But if Harbaugh loses, this might be a hot take. I mean, the way that this schedule lines up, if Jim Harbaugh loses to Washington, he could be on the brink of losing his job, because if Michigan goes 8-4, now I'm one of these guys that I look at Michigan's history, and I do respect your fan base a lot, and I think that Harbaugh is like as good as it's going to get, and I think that Jim Harbaugh can do the job. And I mean, since you're kind of a Harbaugh defender, you've gotten used to people hurling insults like this guy's overpaid, this guy is so overrated and smug, right? So you absolutely have to love Harbaugh, right? Because even Michigan fans, probably half of the fan base is out on Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are out on him, and I just don't think it's fair. He brings in top recruiting classes almost every single year. He's bringing a team that went like 3 and something when Rich Rod was there. He's bringing that program back, and you're getting top recruits, and you're getting these guys to come to school, and you're bringing guys to the NFL. It's just that Ohio State game that's really, really ticking people off. And listen, just because Brady Hoke got lucky and did it once doesn't mean that Jim Harbaugh is a bad coach because he can't do it. It's just, I think it's more where Ohio State's program is in comparison to Michigan. Michigan's building something really, really good. And the biggest question is, you fire Jim Harbaugh, who are you hiring?
And guess what? Harbaugh, he's almost a victim of starting so hot, like, on the precipice of beating Ohio State, and then Ohio State takes that leap. So, we referenced the 2016 game earlier. That almost doesn't even mold well for him. So you're looking at the schedule, and Patrick, there's this 4-game schedule is brutal because there's no off schedule. You have Penn State and Wisconsin. You do get both teams at home, but even winning both versus James Franklin and versus Christ, and I know that Jonathan Taylor's not there, but I think the quarterback of Wisconsin's going to come back. Wisconsin is still going to have that solid defense. And then you have to go to Minnesota and at Michigan State with Mel Tucker, who's going to have that defense. I just think that is brutal. So I think Washington is a must win. And then it's looking like maybe 3-1 at best. I mean, 4-0 would just be absolutely absurd. If you go 4-0, you're going to go undefeated probably until the last game of the year. But that schedule's absolutely brutal right there.
Yeah, that 4-game stretch is so difficult. And a lot of people, I think they're talking about the first 2 games more. I think the next 2 are going to be the toughest because you're facing dogfight in Wisconsin. Then you face Penn State, which they've owned at home, but I think Penn State's going to come out and say, we're tired of losing here. We're going to give you a little bit more than we normally give. And then you got Minnesota at Minnesota, and Minnesota's trying to prove something. They're trying to say, hey, last year was not something that's just going to go away. So I think they're going to come out, and especially in these big games, they're going to come out and play with an extra fire. Then you got Michigan State. So it's a 4-game trek of hell that you got to go through there. And if they come out 2-2 in that stretch, that'd be perfect. You might not win the Big
You won 2-2. Oh my God!
In that stretch is That stretch is crazy.
You just won 10-2. Then you're going to have to beat Ohio State if you're going to get into the college football playoff.
Oh, I don't think they're going to make the playoff next year. I'm not doing that. I did it last year where I said they're going to win the Big Ten. I'm not doing it again.
Okay, the reason is the defense just isn't there and the new quarterback, you're saying?
I think the new quarterback, especially because you look at the schedule, they got Washington. I don't think that's going to be a super duper test. Then you got Ball State.
Michigan, if I had to look at the line for that game, it is at Washington. I think Michigan will still be favored by maybe 2.5 points going to Washington, maybe 3.5.
Yeah, I think they'll handle them pretty well, and I think it's not going to be one of those games you got to face a tough defense that's. I know Washington's good.
It's tricky though.
Yeah, but I just think with the new coach and everything, it's going to be I think it's going to be a lot better for Michigan in that game. But then you go against Wisconsin, who's going to be your first real test. That's going to be a really, really hard game. And then you got Penn State, Minnesota, and Michigan State all back to back. That's an extremely hard stretch. That's probably one of the hardest stretches in college football.
I agree. And Minnesota, PJ Fleck, I couldn't be a bigger PJ Fleck fan. Like I love the guy.
It's tough. It's tough to dislike PJ Fleck. He's a fun dude.
That's awesome that you say that. Some people are like, he's corny, as row the boat. He's so much about himself and not about the players. And he's just like this used car salesman. But I eat all of that up. I'm a guy who eats up all the lines of elite and
his players like playing for him. So you can't sit here and say, he's a selfish dude.
Yeah,
if his players like playing for him, I hate when people do that. They just make assumptions.
Minnesota's been so like boring with Jerry Kill and the guys that they've had before, and PJ Fleck. I mean, he's had Corey Davis, Tyler Johnson, who I think Tyler Johnson is going to be a good receiver in this league, who got underdrafted. He's a stud in the Big Ten. Yep. And then Antoine Winfield, big-time player, and Rashad Bateman is projected to be a first-round guy. So Fleck knows wide receivers, Tanner Morgan, and the defense, I mean, ever since they went to the younger defensive coordinator, they've been great. So Minnesota is like one of my favorite college teams to watch, honestly. They're probably my favorite team in the Big Ten. Just because like I don't really I'm not a Penn State guy being from Philly. I'm not Penn State. It's like such a cliche choice. It's almost like you and Notre Dame probably. So I love PJ Fleck in Minnesota. I would say I like them.
Yeah, they're a fun team to watch. And I really think they have a chance to even compete with Ohio State at the end. And I know it's tough to say, like, but compete is keep it within 10 to me. And I think
they are going to go on the road to Madison.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Wisconsin's every single year they seem to. Everyone's like, they're gonna take the year off, and then they'll just magically get like 8 white dudes in the offensive line that are really good. So
Wisconsin, I mean, after Minnesota beat Penn State, I'm like, this team's going to win the West, and then Wisconsin, like. I'm just not ever afraid of Wisconsin because they don't have those athletes that just can kill you in one fell swoop. I'm just not scared of them, but they come up every year and just surprise.
I think they're probably the most fundamentally sound team in the Big Ten. They're just so
they gotta be.
It's so weird. Like
that's Wisconsin.
They're not like super skilled like you mentioned. They had Taylor, but other than that, you look at their other players and you're like. I mean, can you name that many Wisconsin quarterbacks? Like, it's not like it's something
I could because I'm just a diehard college fan and I'm at the quarterback position. So you go back. I mean, Hornibrook was terrible.
I loved him. He was great. I like facing him.
What, betting against him?
Yeah.
And then you have Jack Cohn. You had Bart Houston, I remember, but the only good one was Russell, but he's mostly NC State. I don't even consider
but he was there he was only in Wisconsin for a year. And then Wisconsin's got that young kid. He was a freshman last year. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, Mertz.
He was an Under Armour All-American or something.
Graham Mertz or Martz.
Martz, yeah, you're right. He's really, really talented. I think he could come out and kind of help spread out that Wisconsin offense a little bit.
Yeah, I love the Elite 11 quarterbacks. So I just love like all the different college quarterbacks. And and then in the Big Ten too, final thoughts. I mean, I do like Scott Frost as well. And I think it would be awesome to see Nebraska come back.
I hate Scott Frost.
You got that smirk on your face. You got that smirk on your face, like you just like something about.
I
Scott
absolutely
Frost
hate
really
Scott Frost.
gets at you.
Scott Frost just annoys me. He's just like that little gnat that keeps bugging you, but you just gotta have one foul swoop and you're
Why?
gone.
He's trying to go to Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska hasn't been relevant in such a long time.
And they will continue to not be relevant.
What he did at UCF, I mean, he's not Mike Riley. I mean, Scott Frost is just fun. He has that aero raid offense.
I just don't know what it is about him. I don't like him at all. Like it's not like something he did. I don't know him.
Yeah,
like,
let's go and get ourselves in trouble and assure ourselves that we won't get interviews. I'll list some of the coaches I don't like in college to end our interview. James Franklin bothers me in the way that probably Scott Frost maybe bothers you.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like Franklin just because he's the Penn State head coach. I don't like anything to do with Penn State.
Ryan Day, I bet Ryan Day's pretty bad too. He just, you know what I mean? Like
I don't. Well, the thing is, he followed Meyer, and I absolutely hated Meyer. So it's tough to. I didn't like Meyer at Florida. I didn't like him at Ohio State. So it's tough. It was almost like a relief to see a different face.
Just a liar. Like he'll be back in college like in a year. He's going to go to.
Oh
USC.
yeah, they're saying he might take the USC job when that job opens up. Which I don't know how they haven't fired. Whatever his name is at USC, Clay Helton. That's right, Clay Helton at USC.
We'll save this for next podcast. We'll do a draft of annoying college coaches. It
could be a long one there.
It could be hilarious, but at least we're on PJ Flex, so I'll keep you on another week.
Oh, okay, all right, good. I do love me some PJ Flex.
Yeah, absolutely. Patrick Berthalette, it was a lot of fun. We're going to come up with a nickname for the pod, maybe Big Bertha. We're going to try to start a new website here. And we're at least going to do this once a week, just kind of waiting for a lot more content to come through. Maybe the NBA will come back. And we're going to hit different topics each and every up. All right, Pat, let's sign off.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're almost there. You're at the 1 yard line. Finish the pod. Pat, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much. Till next time.
Good stuff.